Hi there, I'm Mike Gales for Everlast Nutrition, and in this video I want to show you guys how to design your own exercise program, because far too often I see this. Hi there, how are you? Come have a seat. Hi there, how you doing? My name is Paul, and the reason why I'm here is that I've never really trained before, but I want to get rid of some of this extra weight I've been carrying. And I have a few injuries, so I was looking for your advice of sort of how to work around them. Did you say it was Steve? Anyway, Steve, I got the best exercise program ever designed. So this is what you're gonna do. You're gonna do all the exercises on this list, 40 reps, and then drop set that with another 20 reps. You're gonna get shredded, I promise you. And that's gonna be $99.95. It's all right, come on in. Hi there, I'm Mike, and I'm basically looking to add as much muscle mass as humanly possible, because I basically want people to just wet themselves when they see the sight of me in the ring. So do you have a training program specifically for that? Was it Steve? Okay, Steve, you want to get huge? I got the best program ever designed to get you huge. What you're gonna do is do every exercise on this list for 40 reps and then drop set that with another 20 reps. It's gonna be amazing. You're gonna be swollen. Now that'll be $99.95. Now I will body slam you, because that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Yeah, it's all right. Come on in. Hi there, I'm Peter. And I'm basically looking to spin a web any size, capture some thieves just like flies, take a look overhead. I want to be swinging from a thread, and I basically want to do anything that a spider can. Can you help me? You say your name is Steve? Steve, what's with all the Steves today? Anyway, it doesn't matter. I got the best exercise program ever designed to add some strength. So this is what you're gonna do. You're gonna do every exercise on this list for 40 reps and drop set that with another 20 reps, and you're gonna be stronger than anyone you know you're gonna see. But first, that's gonna be $99.95. What? That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. But maybe if you write that down, it'll make a little more sense if I see it in writing. So can I have a physical copy of this program? Don't worry, I'm eco-friendly. I'll email it to you. And that's something I hate to see, where someone's just handing out some generic routines to every single person that walks in the door. And for the most part, those routines are going to be ineffective because their personal training session really wasn't all that personal. And now don't get me wrong, some trainers are great and they really know their stuff. And you could go and pay a personal trainer if you like. And some people can really use the guidance and the motivation. And that's all good. But if you want to start designing your own exercise programs, well then in this video, I'm going to show you everything that you need to know. So when it comes to exercise, why listen to me? Well, you do see me doing a lot of boxing videos on this channel, and that's because I love boxing and it's a great way to stay in shape. But strength and conditioning is actually my specialty, and my university background is in exercise science. And I used to be a CSCS certified strength and conditioning specialist, which is the gold standard in the industry of training certifications. So I do have the scientific background, but most importantly, every single person that's ever trained with me has always gotten great results, and they had fun while they did it. And that's because I like to keep things simple, and we need to design a routine that you can actually stick to. And so now there is no doubt that you may see me get the odd thumbs down on a video here and there, but for the most part, that's because those people don't like me personally. And I know, I get it, I'm kind of a big geek, or perhaps I look like that guy that stole their girlfriend back in high school. I don't know. But for those people that have trained naturally and have gotten results naturally, well, they can't really argue with the fundamental principles and information that I give, because it's always based on science and experience. And now I'm on my way to being 42 years old, and I've always looked pretty much the same way. And I've done that without having to kill myself in the gym. And unlike a lot of other people that are going to try and convince you to buy this or that secret training program, I always like to show people exactly how I do it, and most importantly, why I do the things that I do. And I take a little more time to explain why, and sometimes my videos do run a little long, and for that I'm sorry. But as always, this is always going to be absolutely free, and you do not need to buy a thing. And I guess sometimes that rubs people the wrong way. Anyway, let's move on. So first we need to delve into some basic principles and some vocabulary, as again I always like to explain why, because if you understand why I'm doing a certain thing, then you're going to understand why what I'm telling you actually works. And then you can also more effectively design your own exercise program. And at the end of this video I will post some simple examples. And now we will go step by step through the basics for you guys that are just starting out. And again, I know this may be a bit of a longer video, taking up a bit of your time. And if you watch this video to the end though, you're gonna understand the general principles needed for you guys that are beginners and just starting out. And that way you can train yourself and not continually have to go and pay someone. So this next half hour or so could save you some money, but most importantly, it could save you your time, because we're going to be using scientific principles that actually work to finally get you the results that may have been elusive to you. Also, if you look right now in the description below, so ignore me for just a moment and take a look below. And as you scroll down, you're going to see that I left links on how to perform most of the free weight exercises that you may come across at the gym. And this, of course, is so that you can perform the exercise correctly, but more importantly, that you perform the exercises safely, because there is no point getting injured, right? So if you scroll down, you're going to find links to those free weight exercises below. And this way, if you're unsure on how to perform a certain exercise, or perhaps if you're looking to add something new to the current routine that you're about to build, well, then you can always come right back to this particular video, look below, and you'll find those links. If you're going to design a tailor-made program for yourself, then it might be a good idea to know exactly what you're going to put into it. And we're going to get to that in just a moment. But first, your first priority should always be to address what exactly it is you're looking to accomplish with your exercise program. Rule number one is to clearly define your fitness goal. So are you looking to lose weight, gain some muscle mass, or increase your cardiovascular or your athletic performance? You need to have a precise goal in mind, because that goal will ultimately dictate the training protocol that you should implement. Because training for size, muscular hypertrophy, strength and power, or endurance will not use the exact same protocol. And also having a clear goal will keep you motivated, because you're going to know exactly what you're looking to achieve. So why can't everyone just train the exact same way? Well, I say this often because it's true. You can think of the human body as being an adaptable machine, and to a certain extent it has the ability to be able to adapt to its environment. Now, if your environment calls for more cardiovascular activity, like long distance running for example, well then your body's going to make certain adaptations like increasing the efficiency of your cardiac output. If your environment calls for lifting heavier objects, as is the case with resistance training, well then your body's going to adapt by increasing the size and strength of your muscles. And now we're going to get to the concept of specificity in just a moment. Because if you're looking for a specific result, like getting bigger or leaner, or simply getting more fit overall, well then you're going to want to train in a specific way. But before we go over the details, I always like to begin with a few questions. So the first question, as I just mentioned, is what do you expect to get out of this routine? What is your goal? What do you want? And remember that you need to be specific. Well, I just want to get huge and ripped, bro. Huge and ripped. Yeah, I get that a lot. And I'm sure you do, dude, but that's just a little vague. But I'll tell you what, I got you covered. You just do 40 reps and drop set that down with another 20 reps with no rest, and you are good to go. No, but seriously, let's take a look at getting bigger and leaner. And let's take a look at this from a physiological perspective. So getting ripped, as I've mentioned in a few videos now, is all about fat percentage. And the only way to get your body to use its fat stores is to expend more energy than you're consuming. So keep that in mind. You need to expend more energy than you consume. And now you're looking to gain new muscle. Well, your body's going to need enough calories to do that. In fact, you're going to need to be ingesting a surplus of calories, and here's why. So let's say, for argument's sake, that right now at this very moment that you're burning, 2,000 calories per day, and that's with your current metabolism. And now you want to gain some new muscle. Well, guess what? That new muscle is also going to need energy in the form of calories to survive. And so you're going to have to feed it. And so now with your new muscle, let's say your metabolism is now burning 2,500 calories per day. Well, your body is a great mathematician, and it knows that if you're only right now eating 2,000 calories a day, and that with your new muscle you're going to be burning more than you're eating, well, it's putting you at a caloric deficit. And if kept up long enough, well, you're going to die. And so gaining new muscle is very metabolically expensive, and your body will never put you into a position where you're going to lose your life. And so if you're not consuming enough nutrition to feed that new muscle, well, guess what? Your body is never going to add it. So long story short, getting both bigger and leaner are at opposite ends of the spectrum. Now, it is probably possible to be eating just enough to be gaining new muscle without gaining any extra fat at all, but that is such a tight rope to be walking. And your time would be far better served focusing on one or the other. So please keep it simple and focus on either gaining new muscle or losing weight, but not simultaneously both. And as always, I suggest placing your focus on slightly increasing your caloric intake and gaining some new muscle first. And that is if your overall goal is to get both bigger and leaner, as gaining new muscle first will raise your resting metabolism, making it much easier for you to slim down later on down the road. But wait, your friend or that other trainer at the gym told you that you're going to gain piles of muscle while you're dieting and eating only 1,500 calories a day. So you're going to gain all of that new muscle without eating. Well, that is super interesting, because all the greatest minds and scientists in the world can't figure out how to gain new muscle and promote good health while at a caloric deficit. As you see, that would pretty much end malnutrition throughout the world. Oh, but that clever guy at the gym figured it out. Psh, whatever. Trust me, keep it simple and narrow down your goal and be very precise, or else you're going to be like a deer stuck in the headlights going nowhere. All that to say that getting bigger and leaner can definitely be a legitimate goal, but you would be better off breaking that goal down into smaller ones, focusing on one component at a time. Because sure, you can maintain your current muscle mass as you slim down, but to gain new muscle, let me say that again, new muscle, you will need to be ingesting enough calories to do that. And that may be difficult to do if you're limiting your calories as you're trying to slim down. And I don't want to see any of you guys wasting your time trying to add new muscle if you're not currently eating enough nutrition to feed it. So we need to be more specific than that. Yet I don't want this video to be 4 hours long. And some of you may be training for something really specific, like a certain sport, or perhaps you're training for a marathon, in which case the protocols will definitely be a little different. But for most of you, the goal of your resistance training program will probably be to add some lean muscle, or at least to maintain whatever lean muscle you have as you're trying to slim down. And thus, I would never recommend that you train in such a fashion that would be catabolic to muscle tissue. And that's why I opened with that little skit of the trainer prescribing 40 and 50 rep sets with little rest to everybody, because that stuff doesn't work long term. It doesn't promote muscle growth, at least not if you're natural. Anyway, for the moment, just keep in mind what your goal actually is, and we're going to get to the actual training intensities to achieve your goal in just a moment. So next question, what do you like to do? Or what do you hate to do? And these are good questions, because all of us are unique individuals, and there is no point in you choosing a mode of exercise that you hate. And so here's an example. So at one time my car broke down, and I had to push that car for a couple of kilometers, and it was absolutely terrible. And now I was sweating like a beast, and I was physically spent, and my legs were on fire. And so yeah, it definitely was a great workout, but I hated every second of it. So even though it burnt a ton of calories, would I ever want to do it again? No. So if you hate free weights for whatever reason, then perhaps you're going to use some machines. Or if you hate weight training altogether, well then maybe some calisthenics or even some resistance bands are the way to go. The point being is that if you hate doing something, well the chances are you're not going to want to do it. So let's find some sort of mode of exercise that you can at least tolerate. What have you done in the past, and why didn't it work? Let's learn from history, or perhaps you're going to be doomed to repeat it. Were the routines too long? They took too much time for you. Maybe you didn't see results fast enough. Maybe you couldn't make your way to the gym. I don't know, there could be a host of different things, but this is your routine. So let's tweak it to your specifications and omit the things that didn't work, and let's turn our focus to things that probably will. Next, and this is a good question, but not too many people ask it, do you have any injuries? Because if so, we can definitely work around them. So I don't know, perhaps you have a bad back. Well, in your case, we could do most of the exercises seated to take the pressure off of your spine. In fact, again, on this channel, you can find some full body routines using resistance bands where you need never get out of a chair. Or perhaps maybe your joints hurt so bad that it makes doing any resistance training or cardio next to impossible. Well, in your case, perhaps we could design a routine done in a swimming pool to take the pressure off of those joints. The whole point is that if you have injuries, we need to take them into consideration so that we can actually work around them. Another question is, where will you train? Will it be at home, at the gym, I don't know, maybe outside? This might also affect when you can train as well, because it's going to be kind of hard to train at 5 a.m. at a gym if the doors only open at 6. Another question is going to be, what equipment do you have access to? You see, all of these factors will dictate what you're going to incorporate into your routine. And now going forward, I'm going to assume for this video that you're going to train at a gym, just so like I said, this video won't be 20 hours long. But it won't necessarily matter where you train because the fundamental principles are pretty much going to be the same. And on this channel, you're going to find videos using resistance bands, body weight exercises, training outdoor at a park, or even using some luggage if you're on vacation. So check out this channel and you're definitely going to find something no matter where you train. Also, think about your particular schedule. Now again, not just what time of day you're going to train, but how many days out of the week you can allot to your training. Because after all, this is your training program and you need to make it as convenient as possible to coincide with your particular lifestyle. And we're going to get to frequency in just a moment. But the one thing that I want to touch on right now is wherever or whenever you train, you pretty much want to be in and out of there in about an hour. And this is where so many people fail, because they want to spend 2 or 3 hours at the gym or the park. And most of that time is either spent resting too much or talking. And later on they quit. And the reason why they quit is because it was just too time consuming. So trust me, it's infinitely easier to stick to a routine that only takes an hour out of your day rather than one that takes 2 or 3 hours, because that's almost like having a part-time job just to get in shape. And we want to keep this as simple and as unobtrusive as possible. So frequency. And you can think of this as how often that you're going to train. And you want to train often enough to elicit an adaptation from your body, but not so often that you end up overtraining, which could be counterproductive. So in the beginning, a decent goal would be to aim for 3 to 4 training sessions per week and have at least 48 hours rest in between training sessions of the same muscle group. Yet every one of us will have different schedules, and some of us may have a lot more free time than others. So for example, if you could only go twice a week, well then that's all good. So then maybe you're going to want to design a routine that sees you training your entire upper body during one session, and then training your entire lower body during that second session of the week. Whereas if you can go 3 times a week, well then perhaps you may opt for a training session of chest and back, followed by another session of biceps and triceps, and maybe you're going to finish off with a session of shoulders and legs. Maybe you have the luxury of going 5 days a week. Well then perhaps you could train a different muscle group every time that you went to the gym. So that could be an individual session of shoulders, followed by one for back, one for legs, one for arms, and one for chest. And then maybe you'll throw in some exercises for your core in every second workout. The thing is, you need to figure out how often you can go to the gym and how much time you can spend once you're there. So I would recommend that you aim for a minimum of at least twice a week. But some of you may have the luxury of hitting the gym up to 6 days a week. But just remember that I would also recommend that you try and be in and out of that gym within 1 hour. So for now, just keep in mind what you're really expecting to get as a result, what you like to do and what you don't like to do, and where you're going to train and how much time you think you can devote to your training per week. And now we're going to start to get to some specifics. Your exercise program should include the following: specificity. And this is probably the golden rule of exercise prescription. And I would say this is where most people make a mistake. You need to ensure that you're training in such a manner that produces the desired outcome. And that's why I mentioned that you have to have a very precise goal in mind, because underwear models and sumo wrestlers don't train or eat the same way. Why is that? Well, I don't want to overcomplicate this by getting into energy pathways of ATP production or muscle fiber types. And maybe I'll do another video on that sometime in the future. But basically, let's keep it simple and remember that your body will adapt to its environment. And I always love to use the sprinter versus the marathon runner analogy. So if you want to look and perform like a sprinter with short and explosive cardio, well then it makes no sense at all to train like a marathon runner with less intense long duration cardio. Or again, let's say if you wanted to look and perform like a lean boxer, well then it makes no sense to eat and train like a sumo wrestler. And if you're training for a very specific sport, then your training protocol should include strengthening both the muscles and reinforcing the neurological components of movement patterns for that specific sport. So basically your training should mimic what you would be doing in said sport. So if you are a rower, for example, well then a major component of your training would be strengthening the back muscles used to row, as opposed to trying to increase your vertical jumping capability. I will assume again for the remainder of this video that we're going to be implementing a simple resistance training program and not necessarily one that is sport specific. Next up, intensity. And you can think of this as how difficult your training sessions are going to be. And of all of the aspects of your program design, this is the number one thing that's going to have the biggest impact on the adaptation of your body. I want to cover this very quickly before we move on, because I often see this misrepresented by bodybuilding blogs and magazines and such. So even if you're not training for a specific sport, specificity still applies to lifting weights, and you're going to want to train with a specific intensity level to achieve certain results. And here's why. We mentioned that having extra muscle is metabolically expensive, meaning that with more muscle you would need more nutrition to survive. And from an evolutionary standpoint, it is not advantageous to need more energy to survive. And our bodies don't really care about looking good in a Speedo at the beach. It cares about survival. So your body doesn't really want to add too much extra muscle, because that means that you're going to need to eat more, which will probably make survival more difficult. So it needs a reason to add more muscle. So for example, if you're routinely lifting heavier objects, your body's going to assume that you need that in your day-to-day life to survive, and so it will adapt by adding larger, stronger muscles. Now, we're not training for survival anymore, but the principle remains the same. You need to give your body a reason why. Yes, a reason why it needs to add more muscle. Thus, you need to stimulate it with a high enough intensity, in this case a heavier weight. And again, that's why guys that are always doing 20 and 40 reps and trying to gain muscle naturally are going to find out that it doesn't work. Because without that anabolic trigger from the chemicals that a lot of these guys are taking, naturally they're not going to see a result. So to gain muscle naturally, it comes back down to specificity, and you need to be lifting a heavier weight than 20 or 30 reps to get larger. It would be the same thing for muscular endurance. If in your day-to-day life you were continuously lifting lighter weights for higher repetitions, well then your body's going to assume that it needs more muscular endurance for your survival, and that's the way that it's going to choose to adapt. So just keep that concept of specificity again in mind, because you're going to also want to train with a specific intensity to yield a specific result. And I'm sorry because I know I keep repeating myself, but for the most part that's because I want certain concepts to stick with you. And so far, we mentioned that there are a few components that you should consider for your workout, like the frequency. Now again, everybody has different schedules. And again, you should never let anybody else dictate exactly when you should train. So design your own program around your own particular schedule. But I would recommend that you train your body evenly and try to train each muscle group at least once per week. As for time, try to formulate your workouts so that you're done in about an hour. As for the type of exercise, well, that's always a personal preference, and you should definitely choose something that you like to do. So that could be boxing, tennis, playing basketball, lifting boulders, I don't know. As long as it's something that you like. But for this particular video, I'm going to pretend that's going to be resistance training with some weights. And as for intensity levels, well, different intensities are better suited for specific goals. So let's get to that. And I'm sorry for rambling. So let's continue going over a few terms that you may come across. Let's systematically go over some of these terms so that you'll have a better understanding. So let's take a look at load. And this is going to be the amount of resistance that you're going to be using. And when it comes to training, we're actually looking to overload. And what I mean by that is that you need to put enough stress on your muscles or your cardiovascular system to elicit an adaptation. Or my friend, you're simply wasting your time. And this is probably the biggest mistake that people make when they wish to put on some lean muscle, is basically they don't push themselves hard enough. So next we're going to talk about volume. And this is the amount of work done per training period. And I like to keep it super simple. And so I recommend using time for your cardiovascular component. And for your resistance training, I like to use repetitions and sets. So what is a rep? Well, a repetition is one complete full range of motion for that particular exercise. So if somebody told you to do 12 reps of squats, for example, well then you're going to do 12 consecutive squats in a row. And the rep ranges are critical for developing the physique that you desire. The rep ranges for endurance are usually 15 plus reps. The rep ranges for hypertrophy or muscular growth usually range between 6 to 10 reps, and most people will shoot for about 8. The ranges for strength are usually from 1 to 5 reps, and most people will usually shoot for about 3. But you must be using a heavy enough load, i.e. resistance, and that's in our case weight, that makes it next to impossible for you to pass that target rep. And here's what I mean. So this here is a very common problem. This guy here has a target of 8 repetitions. The problem here is that he's using a weight that when he gets to that 8th repetition, he could probably do another 8. So even though he had a target of 8, he's using a load that he could probably do 20 reps with. And instead he should have been doing this here, where his target rep is 8, and by the time he gets to that 8th rep, where he knows that he would probably fail if he tried to do another one. So he's basically spent by the time he gets to that 8th rep. And if it was too easy like the first guy, well then he should go heavier. Next we'll take a look at time under tension. And you could think of that in terms of tempo. So pretty much how long it's going to take you to complete one particular repetition. And a common example would be something like 2 seconds concentric, 1, 2, and 3 seconds eccentric, 1, 2, 3. And you can alter the intensity of your lifts by altering the time under tension, the tempo, or how long it takes you to complete that particular repetition. So next, let's take a quick look at exercise order. And you wouldn't think that this would affect the intensity of your workouts, but it does. And I'll give you a quick example. So let's say you want to maximize your bench press and you're doing a chest workout. Well, if you started with some push-ups and then some flies, and then finally you went to attempt the bench press for a maximum lift, well, that's definitely going to affect the amount that you can lift because you're already fatigued by the time you got there. And so you'd be better off to reverse the order because you could still do the flies and the push-ups when you're a little tired. And so for most of you, you're going to want to tackle the most challenging exercises in your routine first. I like to keep things simple, and the basic structure of my exercise program usually looks something as follows. So first I'll warm up, and then if I had any power exercises such as cleans or push presses, well then I would perform those first, as they are the most explosive, they take the most amounts of energy and skill to perform. And I want to tackle those first while I'm fresh, so that way I can maximize the amount of weight that I'm going to lift, and I can also lessen the likelihood of getting injured. Then I would do multi-joint exercises next, like the bench press or squats, for example. Then I would finish off with some single joint exercises, as those are the easiest to perform and they should be done last. And finally, I'll usually finish off my workouts with some cardiovascular work. And people always ask me, why cardio after weights? Well, for one, it's going to clear the lactic acid out of the muscles that you just worked, and two, you don't want to be sweating all over the gym equipment because you did your cardio first. And so I usually like to do cardio at the end of the workout. So right now, I just want to cover this really quick. And you can designate the intensity of your program in a few different ways, such as heart rate, weight lifted, or even the total amount of weight that you moved in a certain time period. And here are a couple of examples of how most trainers may designate the intensity of your program. For the cardiovascular component, many trainers are going to use a target heart rate. And the simple way to calculate that is to take your maximal heart rate, which is 220 minus your age, and then multiply that by intensity. So if we want to train at an intensity of 50%, for example, of your maximal heart rate, well then if you're 35, that would be 50% multiplied by 185, which would give you 93 beats per minute. And if you want to up that intensity to 85%, well then you're going to have a heart rate of around 158 beats per minute as your target. And you're going to be in an aerobic zone from 70 to 80% of your maximal heart rate, and an anaerobic zone from 80 to 90% of your maximal heart rate. As always, I like to keep it simple. And so for my cardio routines, I like to use how I feel using an RPE scale and time. So for example, if I told you to run for 20 minutes, then try to cover as much distance as you can in that time. And then at the end, ask yourself how you feel on a scale of 1 to 10. And if it wasn't at least an 8, then you want to increase the speed on your next workout because you want to be almost spent by the time that 20 minutes is over. As for the resistance training component, many trainers will prescribe the intensity using a percentage of your 1 rep max, which is basically how much weight you can lift for 1 repetition. So just to give you an example, if you bench press 200 pounds and they said to do 10 reps at 75% of your 1 RM, well, that translates to 10 reps at 200 times 0.75 or 150 pounds. So as always, I like to keep it simple. And for my resistance training program intensity, I like to use a specific number of repetitions. So if I said to do such and such an exercise for 10 repetitions, well, then you're going to use a weight that makes it almost impossible to go past that specific target. So in this case, by the time you got to that 10th rep, you should be almost unable to go for another. And if you find that you still had more in you, well, then you must go heavier because that weight is simply too light for you. And then we go back to whatever our goal is. And remember that endurance, the ranges will be 15 plus reps. Hypertrophy or muscle growth, those ranges are between 6 and 10 reps. And strength ranges are between 1 and 5 reps. How about rest? Now this is going to be the time interval between sets. And you can also alter your intensity by varying your rest period between sets. So the rest periods for endurance are usually between 30 to 60 seconds between sets. For hypertrophy, remember that's muscle growth, well, the best rest times are between 60 to 90 seconds between sets. And for strength, you're going to want to rest between 2 to 5 minutes between sets. Another important aspect to remember about rest is that your body makes its adaptations to your training protocol in between your training sessions when you're at rest. So in other words, your body uses rest to repair and remodel itself. So I would recommend that you have at least 48 hours in between training sessions of the same muscle group. So for example, if you train chest today, well, at least wait 48 hours before you train chest again. So guys, you do not want to be training chest and biceps every single day at the gym. Let's take a look at progression, because if things are getting too easy for you, then you need to increase the intensity once more. You need to keep in mind that your body will adapt to the stress, i.e. that training protocol that you are now putting it through. That means that you're going to have to increase the stress occasionally to continue to force your body to adapt. I would also recommend that along with progression, that you add some sort of variation to your program to keep your body adapting to new movements. So variation, and this is just saying to keep mixing things up a bit, because remember that your body is going to adapt, and we want to keep it adapting by continuously throwing new stimuli at it. And now this can be in the form of different exercises and intensities. And I would recommend that you make changes to your workout program at least once a month, so you can alter the exercises, the rest periods, or the intensity levels from time to time. And you're going to find that by making these changes, you're going to keep your body continuously adapting to that new stimuli. Your selection of exercises is critical, and you're going to need a certain criteria. Like, is that specific exercise effective? Because if not, why bother? Is that specific exercise safe? Do you have access to the necessary equipment? And remember, this is important. Do you enjoy doing that particular exercise? As a quick tip, I would suggest that as long as you're not injured and you're looking to maximize your time at the gym, that you put your emphasis on multi-joint exercises, because they incorporate more muscles than the isolation exercises that you see many people doing at the gym. And you can trust me that you're going to achieve your fitness goals so much quicker doing multi-joint exercises like squats rather than a single joint isolation exercise like an abductor machine. Here's a quick tip for all of you guys that are new to training. How do you know if you're doing that particular exercise right? Well, everyone has a smartphone these days, and we're going to use the camera function on your smartphone to verify your technique. And I used to love to do this when I trained people. And if you're a trainer, well then feel free to use this because it's a great tool. I would take a picture of the client in the start position, and then another picture with the client in the end position. And I would do that for every single exercise as I walked them through their new program. And I would send it to them later with all of those pictures incorporated into their routine. Why? Well, the reason is that you're much more inclined to notice certain things, right or wrong, when it's actually you in the picture. And I would also leave certain notes next to the pictures, like don't forget to keep your elbows in or out, palms facing up, palms facing down, or perhaps a reminder to keep your knees in. And that person was much more inclined to remember those notes when they saw themselves in the pic. And so here we could do the exact same thing. So you can watch the videos on this channel of the exercises that you wish to include, and then take a picture of yourself in the start and end positions, and then compare them to the videos to make sure that your body position is correct for each exercise. For you guys that don't have anybody else to take the pics, well, that's no problem. In fact, perhaps it's even better. You can lie the camera down on a bench next to you and video yourself doing a couple reps with some very light weight of each exercise. And then once again, compare your technique to those videos. And also once again, if there's a great demand for certain videos for any particular exercises that I didn't include, well then I can always add those in the near future. Finally, you can create your own gym soundtrack to keep you motivated as you play your own music while you work out. An added benefit to that is that when other people see you with headphones, they're going to realize that you're focused and unable to chat at the moment. And that could be a good way to cut down on other people interrupting your training if you happen to have that problem. So let's have a quick recap thus far. Decide what it is that you're looking to achieve. So is that gaining new muscle, losing some fat, or perhaps increasing your athletic performance? Then figure out how often per week you think that you're going to be able to hit the gym. So remember, that's your frequency. Decide which exercises that you wish to include into your training program. And most of all, make sure that you're training with the right intensity and rest periods to produce the desired result. So if you're looking to gain 5 pounds of muscle, well then perhaps doing 40 reps and 10 sets of bench presses with only 30-second breaks every single day is not going to work particularly well for you. Also remember that your body will adapt to the stress, i.e. training, that you put on it. And to continue making progress, well, you're going to have to increase the level of resistance progressively and change up your routines once in a while. Don't forget to try and do the exercises that require the most amount of energy and skill first at the beginning of your program when you're fresh. Organize a program that sees you training all your major muscle groups at least once per week. And space out your routine so that you have enough rest between sessions so that you're not overtraining. Also, you may want to test yourself and make note of any progress because you want to ensure that your training program is effective and that it's doing what it was designed to do. And I'm going to do a full video soon about testing yourself because you need to know whether or not this program is actually working. I am so sorry for talking your ears off, but I wanted to make sure that if you're new to training, that you will sort of know where I'm coming from and have an idea of why we will put things together in a certain way. That way you should have no problem designing your own routine that's tailor-made for you. And to make this a little more clear, let's go over a few examples together right now and review how we're going to incorporate these ideas into different routines. I guess the easiest way will be to get right to it. So, scenario 1. Let's say that we have a guy that's looking to lose a little fat, looking to increase muscular endurance, maintain his muscle mass while he does that, yet he can only train 2 days a week, he has a bad back, he does have access to a gym, and he doesn't mind lifting weights. So here we have some basic information, and we're going to use that info to create a quick exercise routine for this guy. Now just keep in mind that if he were training for a specific sport or specific activity, then his training protocol would include some sport-specific stuff, but he's not, and he says that he doesn't mind lifting some weights, so that's what we're going to do. He can only train 2 days a week, and remember that we want to hit every muscle group during that time. And so an easy way to do that is to have a 2-day split that sees him training his entire upper body in one session and his entire lower body during a second session. So maybe he's going to train on Monday and Wednesdays, or Wednesdays and Fridays. You get the idea. One thing to note is that this guy has a bad back, so we need to take that into consideration. So perhaps we can fix that by strengthening the muscles of his lower back in time. But for right now, we're going to choose to incorporate exercises that he can do while seated, so that way he's not loading his spine. So day 1, and we're going to hit the upper body. And we don't want any more injuries, so we're going to prepare his body for exercise with a 5-minute warm-up. And that's going to be done at a moderate pace. And again, this guy has a bad back, so we're going to be seated on the stationary bike, as a treadmill or Stairmaster, for example, may irritate his condition. Next, notice the box right under the warm-up. He's going to be training his back first. And I start here because most people, not all, but for most people, that muscle group is the one that they're going to use the most amount of weight. And so we'll do that one first while they have the most energy. He also doesn't have a lot of time because he's only training 2 days a week. And so I want to squeeze his entire upper body into one workout. So for his back, we're going to begin with the lat pull down. Then for his chest, the incline barbell press. For his triceps, we will use a close grip bench press. Then for biceps, a seated alternate biceps curl. And for shoulders, I will use an exception to my rule. I won't use a multi-joint exercise here like an overhead press, as I don't want to load his spine by lifting weights overhead. So I'm going to play it safe and opt for a single joint isolation exercise like the seated side lateral raises, just to make sure that I don't put any unneeded pressure on that sore back. For all of these exercises, the intensity is critical. And remember that he's looking to lose a little fat, improve his muscular endurance, and maintain the current muscle mass that he has. So the chances are he's following a diet that sees him at a slight caloric deficit, and he ensures that he has adequate protein to maintain his muscle. So he's got his diet in check. Now, as for his intensity, we're going to use a 3-second eccentric and a 2-second concentric tempo. The rep range will be a target of 15 reps each exercise. So remember, that means he's using a load that makes it very difficult to get past that 15th rep. We're going to use 45 seconds to a minute rest between sets, and I'm going to aim for 3 sets of each exercise. Now, during that rest period between sets, I recommend that he spends that time stretching that same muscle group, because we want to use our time, all of our time, effectively. He will finish off day 1 with 15 minutes of intense cardio that sees him using about an 8 out of 10 for effort. So this entire workout should take him about an hour, and he will have hit most of the muscles of his upper body. Day 2 will be a lower body workout, where again we're going to be looking to keep any unneeded pressure off of his back. So we're going to warm up again with 5 minutes on the bike. Then we're going to hit the leg press machine, and most of these machines have an adjustable back, and I would set it to a position where he feels most comfortable. Next, we're going to move on to the leg extension machine to target his quads, and follow that up with the leg curl machine to target his hamstrings. Now finally, I would have him hit the seated calf machine to target his calves. Now I know the little box shows a standing calf raise, but that's because I didn't have the video of the seated one. And again, if there's enough demand, I'll make one. But just for right now, use your imagination and pretend that he's seated. Once again, he's using that same tempo and the rep range of 15 reps with 45 seconds to a minute break in between sets. And he's shooting for 3 sets of each exercise. And don't forget, he's stretching those same muscle groups during those rest periods between sets. Next, I would have him train the muscles of his core by using the ab routine that I left in the description below. And he's going to finish off once more with 15 minutes of intense cardio on the bike. And I would remind him that it's important that he's done in about an hour. Summary of scenario 1. He had 2 workouts, an upper body and then a lower body workout. And within those 2 workouts, he trained most of his muscles at least once a week. And it was designed so that he was in and out of that gym within an hour. He was looking for muscular endurance, and so we used 15 repetitions per set, along with a 45-second to minute rest period between sets. For the most part, we used multi-joint exercises during that 2-day split to make sure that we were getting the most bang for our buck. But we also wanted to make sure that we took his injuries and dislikes into consideration. So for example, we stayed away from things that would load his spine. We also tried to organize his routine so that the most difficult exercises were done first. We also made sure that we weren't neglecting his cardiovascular system. He can keep doing this routine for 4 to 6 weeks, and then we can alter it with different intensities and different exercises. I'm sorry, but you'll have to forgive me if I'm not explaining everything perfectly here, as I'm trying to squeeze as much info as possible into this one video. So that way you guys will have a decent understanding of what you need to do to tailor any routine to your own specifications. Let's keep moving on with scenario number 2. This guy has a different goal, as he wants to build some new muscle. He can only train 3 days per week, so that could be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I don't know, even Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So 3 days a week it is. So 3 days a week is his schedule. So we want to design a program that trains all of the major muscle groups at least once a week in that time. He doesn't have any injuries at all, and for the sake of this video, he has access to a gym and he wants to train using weights. And hopefully as we go along here, you're going to start to see a contrast between different workouts for each specific goal. This guy's diet, if he's looking to gain new muscle, will hopefully be a balanced one. Yes, that has enough carbs, fat, and protein, with a slight increase in caloric intake to help stimulate muscle growth. And before we move on, just take a look in the lower corner, and we're going to cover the intensity right off the bat. So his time under tension will remain the same at 3 seconds eccentric and 2 seconds concentric per rep, but his target rep is no longer 15 like it was in the last program, which means that he's now lifting a heavier load than that guy was for endurance. So he's going heavier in order to stimulate muscle growth. So he's not doing 40 reps, because if you're natural, well, doing 40 reps is not going to get you much bigger. Also notice that his rest period between sets has increased to between 60 and 90 seconds. Because he's lifting a heavier weight, he's going to need a little longer time to recover than the first guy between sets. The next thing to note is that because he has the time to train 3 days per week, the volume of training for each muscle group per workout is now different. So let's quickly jump through this day 1 workout, chest and back. And why those 2 muscle groups? Well, they're antagonist groups, meaning that they work opposite of each other, and that will limit the effective fatigue for certain lifts. A man that is doing a back exercise and then wants to do a heavy bench press will not have his bench press ability decreased as much by first training back as he would doing shoulders or triceps first, as those muscles will be used to lift in the bench press as well. So you can arrange your schedule differently, it's up to you. But I like to bundle up opposing muscle groups together. So here he warms up with 5 minutes of cardio using a row machine, which is cool because we're also training back today. After the warm-up is the flat bench press, and I choose the flat bench first for chest, as that will be the lift where he will use the most amount of weight, and I want to do that one first. On the next workout, I would switch up the order and do a back exercise first, just to keep things balanced. But today we're doing chest first. Now there are 2 ways to proceed after we finished our first exercise. We could do another chest exercise and then finish with a third, or you could do a back exercise next instead, and then alternate back and forth between chest and back. So that could be 3 sets of the bench, and then 3 sets of the bent over row, then 3 sets of the incline, followed by 3 sets of the lat pull down machine, etc. But here we're going to opt to do 3 sets of the flat bench, followed by 3 sets of the incline barbell press next, then 3 sets of the incline dumbbell flies. So that way I did all of my chest work first. I also used my rest periods to do some static stretching for at least 30 seconds to maximize my time. After I've completed those chest exercises, then I'm going to hit my back with the bent over barbell row. Again, I know the little box video shows a dumbbell row, and that's because for some odd reason I didn't post a barbell row, which is strange because it's probably my favorite for back. Anyway, for now use your imagination and pretend, and I'll post that one in the near future. After the bent over barbell row, we will do 3 sets of the lat pull down machine, and finish with 3 sets of the upright row to target his traps. Then he hits the mat for the ab routine, and perhaps 5 minutes of additional stretching. He will finish day 1 with 15 minutes of cardio. Yep, even though he wants to gain muscle, he's still doing cardio. He has no injuries, so we're going to have him run on the treadmill. Now, it's only 15 minutes at a higher pace, so it won't be catabolic to muscle tissue. And I want to note that I would never have my clients ignore their insides, their cardiovascular fitness, because you're putting in all of this effort, so you not only want to look like you're in shape, but you actually want to be in shape. So some cardio is always a good thing. Day 2, arms. Notice the same intensity as day 1, the target of 8 reps per set, and that 1 minute to 90-second break between sets. And remember that you can do some static stretching during those rest periods. So here we're going to switch up the warm-up to keep things interesting, and we loosen up the shoulders and wrists with some jump rope for 5 minutes as we get the body warm. We will alternate, and 1 week we will start with biceps, and the following week we'll start with triceps. And today we will start this off with the standing barbell curl for 3 sets of 8 reps each. And again, we're going to start with this exercise because that will be the one that we'll use the most amount of weight for. Then we could, if we like, jump over to the close grip bench press next and alternate back and forth between biceps and triceps. But instead, I will choose to go downward and do all of the bicep exercises first. So I'm going to move on to the standing alternate hammer curls for 3 sets of 8 reps each. And remember, we're resting at 60 to 90 seconds and stretching at least 30 seconds while we rest. We will finish biceps with a standing alternate curl. And then we're going to hit those triceps with a close grip bench press. You got it, for 3 sets of 8 reps each. Then 3 sets of tricep dips. And here, if you're strong, you may need to add some weight to your lap to increase the load. We're going to finish off day 2 of arms with 3 sets of tricep kickbacks. Then again, we hit the mat for the ab routine, and this time we finish off with 15 minutes of the stationary bike as cardio, just to keep it interesting. Day 3, the final workout of the week. And this will be legs and shoulders. And why legs and shoulders together? They're not opposing muscle groups. Well, we only have 3 days to train, and this is a good pairing because they don't really interfere with each other too much. And this is the one workout where I never flip around the order. I always do legs first, as I don't want to take chances doing squats or deadlifts while I'm even slightly fatigued. We will switch up the warm-up once again, and this time we'll warm up for 5 minutes doing the stair climber to get some blood flowing to those legs. Here we will do some squats first. Yep, the king of all exercises. Then after our sets of squats, we're going to ease up a bit and do some easier isolation exercises as we hit the leg extension machine for 3 sets and then the leg curl machine for 3 sets. We leave legs behind and then move on to shoulders for the seated barbell press. And again, I use this exercise order first because this will be the heaviest exercise for shoulders of the day. And that's 3 sets, 8 reps each. We continue with the lateral side raises for 3 sets and the rear delt raises for 3 sets. Off to the floor again for the ab routine, maybe stretch for 5 minutes, and then it's our ritual to finish off with 15 minutes of cardio. And today we'll use the treadmill to run on those tired legs to finish off the week. So a quick summary of routine 2. We trained all of the muscle groups this week with our 3 training sessions. And because we did 3 training sessions per week instead of 2, we had a little more time, and thus we were able to increase the volume of work as compared to the first scenario. Our goal was also different from the first scenario, and we increased the load to lift with enough intensity to stimulate some muscle growth. We also made sure that we started each muscle group with a multi-joint exercise, and we did our heaviest lifts for that body part first. Now we need to ensure that our nutrition is good and that we're sleeping enough at night to maximize our results. Okay, on to scenario 3. So this guy perhaps wants to build some new muscle, but his primary focus is strength. Well, he is being specific. And once again, if you want to lift heavy and get stronger, well, specificity says that we're going to need to train that way. And so we're going to increase the load and lower the number of reps as compared to the last scenario. The trade-off here is that we're also going to need to increase the rest time between sets so that he can recover enough to push that heavy load on the next set. We also need to make sure that he's eating a balanced diet and that he's not dieting, because if he's at a caloric deficit while doing this type of training, his strength will definitely take a hit. So wow, he has 5 days a week to train. So that could be from Monday to Friday with the weekends as rest, for example. And with those 5 workout days per week, that means he can really increase the volume of work done by each muscle group per week. And we will use a 5-day split that sees him basically focusing on one muscle group per workout. So day 1, shoulders, and this workout will be all shoulders. But notice that we're no longer using 3 sets and that we've upped the volume to 5 sets. And the very first set of every exercise will use a lighter load to warm those muscles up and get them ready for the heavier weights that are to come. So our target rep for the first set is 12 reps, and we use a weight that sees us spent at about that 12th rep for the first set. For the following 4 sets, we use a load that sees him doing about 5 reps, and we rest 2 minutes and 30 seconds between sets. During the rest periods, I would still suggest stretching, but maybe differently from the previous routines. So instead of stretching the same muscle group that you're working, try stretching an opposing muscle group or a muscle group that's not involved in the lift, because there has been some evidence that suggests that stretching the muscles used right before using them in a maximal lift can affect your performance. So here we're training shoulders, and just to be safe, you could stretch your legs, for example, between your sets to maximize your time. I would still encourage you to spend an additional 5 minutes after your workout stretching the muscles that you just trained. And you're often going to see this type of 4 or 5 sets of 5 reps in strength training for American football. Now maybe later on down the road when he's used to training with heavier loads, he can start to incorporate a few sets using a heavier weight and perhaps shoot for 3 reps. But for now, 5 reps will definitely help him up his strength. So we start with a warm-up, and we jump rope to get some blood flowing for 5 minutes. Now, if he had some power exercises, like a push press or a power clean, that require some explosion and some skill, I would recommend that he do those first. But he's not interested, so we're going to move on. And we hit the barbell shoulder press with a warm-up set of 12 reps, followed by 4 sets of 5 reps each. And then he's resting 2 minutes and 30 seconds between sets. Then we can do some lateral side raises for 5 sets. So again, that's a set of 12 reps, followed by 4 sets of 5 reps each. And then we'll use that same rep scheme for the last exercise, so that's 5 sets of rear dumbbell raises. We will target his core muscles with the ab routine. And then after that, 5 minutes of stretching out those muscles that he just used in this workout. And as with all of the other routines, we're going to finish with cardio, and here we will use the treadmill. On day 2, the toughest day of the week, legs. We will follow the same intensity as the last workout for this one, so that's 5 sets per exercise, 1 of 12 reps, and then 4 sets of 5 reps. And we also stick with that same 2 minutes and 30 second rest period between sets. And don't forget to throw in some static stretching for at least 30 seconds to maximize your time during those rest periods. For a warm-up, we will use 5 minutes of the stair climber. So we're going to start legs with some box squats, and we're going to set the box so that our thighs are pretty much parallel with the floor. This way he knows that he has to go down deep enough to hit the box. Since he is only training legs once a week, he's going to be fine killing his legs even further with a deadlift as his second exercise. Now I know that some trainers don't advise doing squats and deadlifts in the same workout, but in a powerlifting competition where you see the strongest guys out there, they often compete in both lifts on the same day. And so, specificity. If our guy perhaps wants to be competing in strength competitions, well, he better train in kind. He's going to finish off his leg workout with 5 sets of lunges using dumbbells. Now, instead of using the ab routine, he's going to do a lower back routine, which consists of 2 sets of 20 reps of some hyperextensions. Many people train their abs, but they neglect the reverse side, their lower back, and we want this guy to be strong and balanced. So 2 sets of lower back training is what he will do. Finally, we will use the bike to burn those legs for 15 minutes of intense cardio to finish off day 2. Day 3, arms, and once again we use that same rep scheme, and we will warm up for 5 minutes using the jump rope. Remember that I will rotate these and start with triceps the next time around, but today we're going to start with the standing barbell curl for those 5 sets. Followed by some standing alternate hammer curls for 5 sets, and then finish off with some standing alternate curls for 5 sets. Then we're going to jump over to the close grip bench press for 5 sets, then 5 sets of tricep dips, and finish off with 5 sets of tricep pushdowns. Now I want to take a split second to point something out here. For the most part, these are the same exercises that we did in the last scenario for arms, and that was for muscle building. So why the same exercises for strength? Well, I purposely did that to draw your attention to the fact that it is the intensity of the exercise that is now different. He may be using the same tempo, but the load, reps, and rest periods are all different. And for sure, lifting these really heavy loads, he's definitely also going to be adding some muscle, but he's also really taxing his neurological system with those heavy loads. And that's making those muscles really fire to lift those heavy weights. And that's what will cause the adaptation of getting stronger by his body. You are never naturally going to get much stronger if you don't lift heavier loads. And you can choose to believe that or not. But I'm telling you, it's going to be tricky to naturally lift over 400 pounds if in your training you never go over 100. Anyways, let's continue. He's going to do the ab routine, followed by maybe 5 minutes of stretching, and then cardio on the treadmill for the last 15 minutes of the workout. Day 4, back. And we're sticking with that same rep and rest scheme as we did for the entire week. And we warm up here with the row machine to get some blood flowing for 5 minutes. Then we start with some heavy one-arm dumbbell rows. Then on to some wide grip pull-ups. If he can get past 5 with his own body weight, then most gyms will have a belt that he can use to attach some weights. Or he can hold onto a dumbbell using his legs to increase the load if he needs to. Next will be some dumbbell shoulder shrugs to hit those traps. And then he's also going to train his lower back using the lower back routine, those 2 sets of 20 reps of hyperextensions. He won't forget the 5 minutes of stretching, and then he's going to hit 15 minutes of cardio to keep switching things up. Day 5, the last day of the week. And for most guys, this is their favorite day, chest day. And again, I know I sound like a broken record, but we continue with the same rep and rest scheme. So he's going to jump rope for 5 minutes to warm up, then hit the flat bench press, followed by the incline dumbbell press, and then finish with the flat dumbbell flies for those 5 sets each. Then again, the ab routine, some stretching, and the treadmill for 15 minutes at the end. A quick summary of scenario 3. He finished his 5 days and takes the entire weekend off as rest. He's put in some good work, and he was in and out of the gym within an hour. The volume and rest times were increased compared to the other routines, but so was the load, which reduced the number of reps down to 5. He used a lot of multi-joint exercises, and he usually did the most difficult ones first. And next month, he's also going to make some changes to his routine to keep progressing. And that may include introducing some sets where he'll increase the load for a target of 3 reps per set to really get his body used to lifting some heavy weight. Now, before people get upset, I know that these were very basic routines, but they are basic for a reason, so that people that are new to training will get an idea of how to design their own program. So as you saw in these scenarios, they first decided what it was they wanted to achieve: bigger, stronger, leaner, or perhaps increase their muscular endurance. They then incorporated the proper intensity level into their routine to match their goal. And if their goal was sports specific, then they would have added some sports specific exercises to their routine. And remember that you need to design a routine around your personal schedule. A training program or trainer shouldn't be dictating when exactly you must train. You must design it around your unique schedule, or else you're never going to follow it. Include exercises that are safe and effective, ones that you have the equipment to perform. As for example, I was limited to using exercises here that I already made little videos for. And most importantly, please choose exercises that you like. I suggest also in the beginning that you keep it simple and use the template of a warm-up, then power exercises or sports-specific exercises first, multi-joint exercises next, followed by single joint exercises after that, some stretching, and then some cardio. And remember to keep the duration down to about an hour. And now, most importantly, you know the rep ranges, the rest periods, and the exercise order, and how to structure each individual workout using that template. You now know enough to create your own program and do what you like to do. So if you want to warm up with some shadow boxing, then go for it. If you hate squats, well then don't do them. You hate weights altogether? Well, that's fine. Let's do some body weight exercises. You want to use the heavy bag for cardio at the end instead of the treadmill? By all means, do it. It's your routine and you tweak it to your personal specifications. As time goes by, you're going to learn to incorporate new things and disregard other things that didn't work as well for you. Just remember again that it's your routine. You design it any which way you like. As long as you have the proper diet to achieve your goal and you're training with the right intensities for your goal, well then you're going to get there, as long as you are consistent. And I'm telling you that it's much easier to stay consistent with a program that was tailor-made for you. Finally, consistency will always be the biggest factor that's going to dictate the results of your training, because you can have the most effective exercise program ever designed by man, but if you never use it, well then it's completely useless to you. So once you've decided to commit yourself to some regular training, it will then be the intensity of your program that will have the biggest impact towards sculpting the body that you desire. And remember, the reason for that is that your body will adapt differently to different stresses that you place upon it. And you can alter the intensity of your program by changing different variables such as the load, the volume, rest, frequency, exercise order, or even the exercises themselves. And most of all, remember that you need to make your exercise program both interesting and fun. It is not enough for it to be an effective mode of exercise. Because remember, putting your car into neutral and pushing it up a hill every other day would probably get you into phenomenal shape. But realistically, do any of us ever feel like doing that? The answer is probably not. So my advice to you is to make sure that you incorporate both resistance exercises and cardio routines that you actually enjoy doing, or else you're probably going to abandon your program within a week or two. And just remember that you can always come back to this video, scroll down in the description, and get the links below to exercises that may actually work better for you. This has been Mike Gales for Everlast Nutrition, and if you like these videos, then please click below to like or subscribe, as we're constantly posting up great tips and new ideas, and they're all meant to get you into the absolute greatest shape possible.